So as I begin this video, I realize that most of the people who follow this channel are not the people who need to hear this.
.com Studios, the Valley's classic rock station, 100.7 KS.
I guess you could say I'm a classic rock fan. I grew up in the classic rock era. I have a friend who is the same age as me. We both grew up in the classic rock era. This would have been during the early to mid 70s. But back then, we didn't call it classic rock. We just called it rock. It was new, it was exciting, and we all followed it with the same passion that sports fans follow their favorite teams. And our gateway to the latest music and news were the FM rock stations of the day, or FM rock as it was called back then. FM rock wasn't just there to play us the Billboard Top 40. They played us new music by new artists you hadn't previously heard of. And if an artist was already famous, they played deep cuts that went beyond just their hits. So the other day, this friend that I grew up with told me that he hated having to have to drive with another mutual friend who will remain nameless. He hated to drive with him for any great length of time, and the reason being is because all this mutual friend listened to anymore was the local classic rock station that played the same 10 classic rock songs over and over and over again. It's so tiring and tedious, he would remark to me. And at that moment, we both recognized that sadly, we are different from most of our friends that we grew up with. Because unlike all our old high school friends, we never stopped seeking out new music when we passed our 30s, and that pretty much anyone we grew up with slowly stopped discovering new music as they entered into their 30s. And all they listen to now is the same classic rock songs they grew up with as teenagers. Now just being relegated to listening to classic rock stations that play the same 10 to 15 songs over and over again. And this phenomenon is common when it comes to music and popular culture, and I get it. Because by this time, you have a family, you're done with college, and you work a full-time job. You have to raise kids. You don't have the idle time you had when you were young. Who has time to discover new music when you can get instant gratification by listening to the music that you already know you like? The generation that grew up on classic rock, like myself, also grew up on radio as the primary means of being exposed to new music. And the FM rock radio stations of yesteryear that exposed us to all this new music just aren't there anymore. They've been replaced by classic rock stations. Classic rock stations don't play new artists. They are only interested in playing the artists that were established during the classic rock era. And even with the famous artists whose music they do play, they won't play their deep cuts in the way that FM rock did back in the day. And what about new music that's being released by those legacy acts that they do play? Over the decades, I have seen great artists like Heart and John Mellencamp release astoundingly good new music, and I've seen it ignored by classic rock stations that purport to celebrate their music. These classic rock stations just simply ignore it. They are the antithesis of the FM rock stations that preceded them. They are safe, playing only the most well-known tracks by the most well-known artists that FM rock made famous. So I get it. Your life changed, you settled down, and the delivery method that used to expose you to new music changed to just placating you with songs that you already know. And again, I get it. But my beef with these classic rock fans is that they are always complaining about how there is no good new music to listen to anymore. How all of today's music isn't as good as the music that they grew up with. And this just simply isn't true. I know because I discover great new music almost every week. The main difference, though, is that you have to find it, because radio, even new music radio, is by and large not championing it. And as I say this, I realize that there are a lot of people who follow this channel who are passionate about discovering new music, and that the people who really need to hear this are probably not listening. But within the greater universe of this channel's subscription base, I know that those of you who are passionate about hearing new music are in the minority. I can't deny the numbers. For ages, Robert and I recommended new music for both established and up-and-coming artists on our Music Worth Buying series. a series that we did for over 10 years because we were passionate about exposing great new music. And yet, those videos were usually the lowest watched videos on this channel. However, though, by way of comparison, if we posted a video talking about Led Zeppelin or the Beatles or Queen, the numbers would usually go through the roof. And this doesn't surprise me. These artists made amazing music that still resonates even decades after their last recorded studio outings. Now, common wisdom dictates that if a particular type of video gets the lowest numbers, that you should cut those videos out of your programming. But Robert and I refused for a long time because we just felt it was important to keep doing it. It was only until recently that we put the brakes on the Music Worth Buying show because our videos were being flagged for using audio clips that were less than 20 seconds, and soon that turned into less than 15 seconds, and eventually less than 10 seconds, and then it got to the point where we just couldn't even play the audio clips anymore. So we put the brakes on it. So yeah, I get frustrated when I hear classic rock fans from my generation bitch and moan about the lack of quality in today's new music and how there's nothing new coming out that's any good. But as I say this, I also really feel that deep down inside, those same classic rock fans who are complaining about this would love it if they got to hear some new music that really excited them in a way that their favorite classic rock tracks of yesteryear excited them in their youth and excite them even to this day. I sense that all this bitching and moaning is coming out of a real desire to have their musical passions reignited with something new. If you are one of those, I understand that most of what you hear on contemporary top 40 music radio is soulless. Yes, there are some exceptions, but most of it is auto-tuned. Everything is quantized to the grid using computer-generated beats and loops. But that doesn't mean that good new rock music isn't being produced. It just means that finding new rock music might take a little extra work. But it's work that will pay off, and it's not impossible to find. And also be aware that listening to the same classic rock songs over and over again will only make that music become less special as the years go by. It's when you have variety and other things that you listen to in between that those classic tracks become that much more enjoyable when you get to hear them again. So what's the first step? First, turn off terrestrial radio and subscribe to a streaming service. They're all about $10 a month, and you get access to a universe of music. When I first signed up for a streaming service, I was surveyed about my musical tastes and preferences so that the service could recommend new music to me. I personally prefer Tidal because I think it does a better job at recommending new music than the other two services do. And the more you use it, the better it gets at recommending new music to you. By the way, I recently did a video about the major streaming services, and I mentioned in it my preference for Tidal. This video did generate a number of comments from viewers who looked at Tidal, but then turned away because they felt it was pushing R&B and hip-hop and modern pop on them. What I think is actually happening is that before you start entering your musical preferences into the profile, and before you start to use it on a daily basis, Tidal is just going to default to the mainstream. And those genres that I just mentioned are the mainstream. They're what is popular in the current culture. But the more I used Tidal, the more it reflected my own taste versus the current mainstream, and I would assume that other services out there do the same thing to varying degrees. But once you're on board, start exploring. Sure, check out your favorite artists' albums, but also check out their albums that you've never heard or have only known the hit single to. You might be surprised at what new gems your favorites have recorded that you were never even aware of. When it comes to music, every Friday is Christmas. Every Friday is new release day. One thing I do is I click the suggested new tracks and click play. These are usually advanced tracks for an upcoming album. Start listening while you are driving or doing other things. If something clicks, save it to favorites. You can also tap follow to know when they release their next advanced single or their next album. I also check out the suggested new album section. Sometimes I just select an album because the cover art intrigues me. If something clicks, I add it to favorites. Again, you can also click follow. Remember, you can always unfavorite or unfollow if you change your mind later. Now, I know that what I'm saying right now must seem just terribly and painfully obvious to a lot of the people who follow and watch this channel. But remember, this video is for those classic rock fans who desperately want new music in their blood, but haven't yet turned off the classic rock radio station. Then again, maybe you're a classic rock fan who follows this channel who doesn't really want or need to hear anything new. You're happy with the music you've been listening to all these decades. And if so, great. There's nothing wrong with that. But please, stop complaining that there's no new music worth listening to anymore. It's just not true. This is TJR. Let me know your thoughts. As always, leave a comment. If you like what I do, be sure to click like, click subscribe, smash the bell notification icon. And if you'd like to show that extra level of support, please consider going to my Patreon page and making a monthly donation. Patron supporters get access to exclusive videos every week. And if you can't be a patron supporter, that's okay. Just click like. Doing so allows the YouTube algorithm to recognize this channel. As always, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.